Okay, welcome back everyone to the deep dive.
Good to be here.
So you've given us a really interesting set of source materials today, a snapshot really, from June 4th, 2025.
That's right. The idea is to look just at what was being talked about, reported on, speculated on, all through the lens of these specific sources from that day.
And our job, as always, is to dig into these, unpack them, and pull out what seems most, well, important or just plain intriguing.
Exactly. It's like a time capsule of crypto news from one particular moment.
And speaking of intriguing, there's one headline here that really grabs you immediately. It seems to be the main focus in one part of the material.
Which one's that?
It's titled XRP in 17 Minutes, Why XRP Will Replace Swift and Be Worth Trillions.
Yes, that one.
It's listed as a guest post by Times Tabloid on CoinMarketCap. I mean, that's not exactly a subtle prediction, is it?
No, subtle it is not. We'll replace Swift.
So that's huge. You're talking about the plumbing of global finance here.
Decades old, massive infrastructure. Right. And then tacking on worth trillions for XRP. It's designed to catch your eye, no question. A really, really bold statement.
Absolutely. And the sources frame it so directly. You see the tags, too, like FTR Bank CCY shift to XRP. It leaves no doubt they're talking about a future bank and currency shift, with XRP supposedly right in the middle.
Yeah, it really hammers home the context.
So this tells you that on this specific date, June 4th, 2025, according to these sources, this kind of massive, maybe even speculative vision for XRP's future was out there, being published on a major platform, even as a guest post.
And that itself says something about the crypto information landscape, doesn't it? You get hard news, you get analysis, and then you get these huge forward-looking claims all mixing together.
It's a lot to navigate.
Definitely.
Okay, so while that potential trillion-dollar XRP future is the big, flashy headline, the sources you gave us also show a lot more, let's say, grounded activity from the same day.
Yeah, the day-to-day stuff.
Right. So moving away from the grand vision for a second, what else was going on, according to this snapshot? What caught your eye on the market side?
Well, okay, right there alongside that XRP piece, you see details about actual market activity, specifically fee rankings.
Fee rankings?
Yeah. The sources point out PancakeSwap moving up. It apparently rose to second place in weekly crypto fees.
Second place. Wow. Who did they pass?
They actually surpassed Circle, according to this.
Circle, huh? Interesting. And who was top?
Oh, Tether was still holding the top spot in fees. That seemed unchanged.
Okay, so PancakeSwap jumping Circle in fee generation.
Yeah.
What does that little detail suggest? Maybe about, DeFi activity versus stablecoin movement at that particular moment.
It suggests, well, pretty significant activity on PancakeSwap, right?
Yeah.
Enough volume, enough transactions to generate more in fees that week than a huge stablecoin issuer. It's a tangible little metric of where users were interacting and spending gas.
Gives you a real feel for the economic pulse right there next to the big price talk. Fascinating. Okay, shifting gears a bit, but still within these sources. What about bigger players? Any signs of traditional finance or corporations dipping their toes in further?
Yes, definitely. There's a note about Adam Back.
Okay.
He apparently invested $2.1 million in a Swedish company, H100 Group, and it was specifically for their Bitcoin treasury strategy.
$2 million for a Bitcoin treasury. What's the key takeaway there? Just the investment itself?
Well, the investment's one thing, but what the source really highlights is the reaction. H100 Group stock price reportedly jumped 37% right after.
Whoa, hang on. 37%. Just from announcing a Bitcoin treasury plan backed by Adam Back?
That's what the source claims, yeah. A 37% jump. Not small change.
What does a market reaction like that signal? Does it mean, at least on that day, that traditional markets were really rewarding companies for adding Bitcoin to their balance sheet, especially with a known figure involved?
It certainly seems to suggest that, based on this report, it wasn't just a crypto world story. It apparently moved a traditional stock price quite significantly. Suggests maybe growing acceptance or at least excitement in some corner.
Right, and it wasn't just H100, was it? There was another one mentioned.
Yeah, good point. The sources also mentioned a fintech firm, DigiAsia Corp. They announced a $100 million plan.
$100 million?
Yep, to increase their Bitcoin and Ethereum holdings for their treasury.
So multiple examples just in this one snapshot. Companies explicitly planning to hold BTC and ETH on their books.
Exactly. These aren't trivial amounts either. It points towards, a documented trend in these sources of crypto becoming part of corporate financial strategy and not just something to trade.
More long-term thinking, perhaps.
Seems like it.
And then there's the institutional product side. BlackRock's Bitcoin ETF, IBIT, gets a mention.
Ah, yes. The sources noted it achieved, and I think the phrase was, phenomenal top 25 ETF ranking speed.
Phenomenal speed. What does that actually tell us? Reaching a top 25 ranking quickly? Does that just mean lots of money flowing in fast?
Pretty much, yeah. Phenomenal speed implies a gathered assets under management way faster than your average ETF launch. So, strong investor demand, big inflows into that regulated Bitcoin vehicle right around that time. Significant adoption.
Okay, so we've got these huge predictions. We've got market fee data, corporate treasury moves, fast-growing ETFs, and then, like, back down to the basics almost. New coins.
Always new coins.
The sources mention Binance listing an altcoin called Resolve, ticker Resolve.
That's right. Listed on Binance Alpha and also on their futures platform.
Just a reminder, isn't it, that amidst all the big picture strategy and speculation, the sheer pace of new assets hitting the market, it just keeps going.
Relentlessly, yeah. New projects, new trading opportunities. That cycle is constant.
Okay, so let's recap the snapshot from June 4th, 2025. We've got this, frankly, massive claim about XRP replacing SWIFT, worth trillions.
The headline grabber.
Definitely. Then the nitty-gritty of fee rankings, PancakeSwap's rise. We've got concrete corporate moves, Atom back, DigiAsia, Bitcoin, Ethereum treasuries.
The institutional adoption angle with the BlackRock ETF growing fast.
The regular drumbeat of new altcoin listings like Resolve. And then, almost tucked away, but potentially huge, there's a warning sign flagged in these sources.
Ah, you mean the quantum computing mention.
Exactly. It mentions concerns bubbling up, financial analysts worried about whether the crypto industry is actually ready for, well, the threat of quantum computers.
Yeah, it specifically names Rick Maida expressing serious concern around June 3rd, so the day before this snapshot.
And it's interesting, the article title that mentions this apparently also talks about Binance, XRP, and something called Quebec's surging. But the detail the source pulls out is this fundamental worry about the tech's vulnerability.
It's quite the contrast, right? On one page, you might read about trillion-dollar futures, unstoppable growth.
And on the next, an analyst warning that the underlying cryptography might eventually be broken by new tech.
Exactly. Throws a bit of cold water on the pure hype, maybe.
So taking all these pieces together just from this single-day sources, what does this mix tell you, our listener, about the kind of conversations happening in crypto then?
Well, it paints a picture of a space looking in multiple directions at once, I think. You've got the dreamers looking decades ahead, talk about overhauling global finance.
Like the XRP Swift idea.
Right. Then you've got serious players making multi-million-dollar strategic decisions right now, like the treasury plans.
And people tracking the daily grind, the fee rankings, the new listing.
And then you have others looking even further ahead, but at potential risks, like the quantum threat, all happening simultaneously.
So how do these different scales, the immediate market moves, the billion-dollar corporate plans, the grand predictions, and these fundamental tech worries, how do they all fit together? Do they clash?
I think that's the complexity, isn't it? You, the observer, are getting all these signals at once. The super optimistic, the pragmatic, the cautious, they all exist in the same information stream.
And making sense of that mix is the challenge.
Precisely. You have to figure out how to weigh each piece.
It really is a fascinating snapshot. Shows the ambition, the current action, and the deep underlying questions all churning together.
Agreed. We saw the huge XRP claim, the real institutional money moving via treasuries and ETFs, the daily market mechanics, new listings, and that important long-term quantum question surfaced by these sources.
Okay, so based only on what we've discussed from these June 4th, 2025 sources, here's something for you to think about.
Go on.
We see these massive speculative predictions, XRP replacing SWIFT, trillions in value. At the same time, we see concrete corporate investments happening now, but also serious warnings about a potential fundamental threat, like quantum computing possibly undermining everything.
Right, that tension is clear in the sources.
So the question to ponder is, how does the possibility of an existential tech threat like quantum computing sit alongside visions of trillion-dollar valuations? If the very foundation might be vulnerable down the line, what does that do to the credibility or the timeline of those grand optimistic narratives presented here? How do you square that circle?